Pour a Scotch in a room full of strangers and watch what happens. Someone asks what you are drinking, someone has an opinion about it, and at least one person quietly decides they have you figured out. They might be right. A psychologist at the University of Edinburgh spent 6 months testing whether the whiskey in your glass really lines up with the kind of person you are. The answer came back as a cautious yes. So this is what your Scotch says about you, counting down to the choice that gives away the most. Before the list, a quick word on the research, because it beats the usual barstool guessing. A psychologist named Adam Moore teamed up with the Scotch Malt Whisky Society and ran tasting events across 3 continents, putting more than 300 volunteers through the Big 5 personality test. Then he had them rate the 12 core flavours the society uses to describe whisky and went hunting for patterns. He found them. The broad shape was the one this kind of research keeps turning up. The drinkers drawn to novelty lean toward the complex and the smoky, while the more structured, detail-focused ones wanted clear age statements and a flavour they could see coming. Respectable whiskey. Spreadsheet whiskey. That work became a real personality to whiskey matching test, built by people who stopped sorting whiskey by region and started sorting it by who you are. That is the science. Number 9. You drink blended malt, the friendly middle ground. Monkey shoulder, naked malt, the bottles built to be poured freely and mixed without a second thought. You are the person who keeps the good stuff flowing at a gathering instead of guarding it like treasure. You will happily drop your whiskey into a cocktail and feel exactly zero guilt about it, which quietly horrifies the purists. Watching them flinch is part of the fun for you. There is nothing insecure in this corner. You worked out early that whiskey is meant to be enjoyed, not treated as an exam you either pass or fail. The personality research has a tidy read on you. High on agreeableness, comfortable in a crowd, drawn to flavour that pulls people together rather than splitting them into camps. You are not chasing status, and you are certainly not chasing punishment. You poured something smooth, you refilled your friend before they asked, and you got back to the actual conversation. That is a healthier relationship with a bottle than half the people higher up this list have managed. Number 8, you drink lowland Scotch, and you might be the most underrated drinker in this entire lineup. Auchentoshan, Glenkinchie, Ailsa Bay. Light, floral, gentle, often triple distilled, the kind of whiskey that lazy drinkers write off as simple because they have never paid attention to anything quiet. That description fits you as neatly as it fits the dram. You do not need the theatre of a cask-strength smoke bomb or the bragging rights of an allocated bottle to feel settled in a glass. You found something you genuinely like, and you stop performing for the room. The Big 5 work tags lowland drinkers as calm and reflective, and I would add a word the data only hints at: self-assured. You are not trying to win the tasting or correct anyone's notes. You poured something soft and clean, you enjoyed it entirely on your own terms, and you finished explaining yourself about 10 minutes before anyone else in this video even started. Here is the quiet irony. The lowlands very nearly vanished. It was down to a literal handful of working distilleries within living memory, and the soft, triple-distilled style you reach for was almost lost for good before a revival over the past decade or so brought it back. You would have been the last person in the room to make a fuss about nearly losing it. Number 7. You drink Highland Scotch, and good luck pinning you down, because the Highlands are enormous, and the whiskey swings wildly from one end of it to the other. Heathery and faintly smoky in the far north, round and fruity through the middle, salt-edged and bracing near the coast, Dalmore, Oban, Glengoyne. If this is your shelf, you almost certainly hold strong opinions about which stretch of the Highlands you are loyal to, and you tense up a little when somebody flattens it all into one word. You have a story about the first proper dram that converted you, and you will deliver it with full geography attached whether the table asked for the map or not. You are not difficult, you hold a standard, and you simply like being understood correctly. There is a real thread of brain chemistry under this too. Our heads reward novelty with a hit of dopamine, and a whiskey that reads as bold and thrilling to you can read as ordinary to someone wired a different way. Your preference is not random noise. It is shaped by the way you process the world, and you keep circling back to the version that fits the wiring. Number 6. You drink for the age statement, and the number stamped on the label does real work for you. The Macallan 18, the Dalmore, the bottles that show up in heavy boxes and look the part on a shelf above the fireplace. The researchers who study why people drink whiskey at all describe a handful of basic motives, and one of the loudest is plain status. Signaling that you have arrived, that you can tell good from great, that you belong in the room with the people who know. That is your lane, and there is honestly no shame in owning it. The catch is that age and quality are not the same thing, and a confident 18 on the label can quietly hide a thoroughly average liquid inside the bottle. The sharpest version of you already understands this and pays for the maturity you can actually taste in the glass, not the digit printed on the carton. The version of you still finding its feet is the easiest customer the whole industry has. And trust me, the marketing departments adore you for it. There is a tell, by the way. If you can name the age of every bottle you own but go quiet when someone asks what any of them actually taste like, you are buying the number, not the whiskey. Number 5. You drink the sherry bombs, the dark and decadent far end of the spectrum. Glendronach, Aberlour Abuna, anything left to sit in old sherry casks until it tastes like Christmas cake soaked in dried fruit, spice, and a little leather. You like richness, and you refuse to apologize for it. Where the smoke crowd wants to be challenged and tested, you want to be indulged, and you will pour something thick and sweet and lower yourself into it like a hot bath at the end of a long week. There is a maximalist streak running through you that shows up far beyond the glass. You do not treat restraint as a virtue. If a little is good, then more is obviously better. And a cask that pounded the whiskey with sherry for 2 solid decades sounds like an excellent plan rather than a gamble. Sometimes you are completely right, and the result is glorious. Sometimes the cask hijacks the whole thing, and the spirit underneath vanishes without a trace. Either way, you committed fully, and you would always rather a bottle swing for the fences than bunt. Number 4. You hunt the cult bottles, and Campbeltown is your spiritual home. Springbank, Glen Scotia, the names that sell out in minutes and start trading for triple their shelf price the moment a shop so much as lists them. Let us be honest, you are not really a casual drinker anymore. You are a collector who occasionally remembers to actually open something. You track release dates, you know which independent bottlers are worth your time, and you have stood in a queue, real or digital, for a bottle nobody outside the hobby has ever heard of. The thrill for you is split clean down the middle, half the liquid and half the chase. Owning the thing nobody else managed to grab scratches an itch that has very little to do with what is in the glass. You overlap with the smoke crowd in one telling way. You enjoy a bit of difficulty on purpose, the friction of the hunt, the funk of a divisive dram that splits a room. You are the friend who turns up to the party with something genuinely rare, opens it without ceremony, and then watches the faces to clock who actually recognizes what they are sipping. Number 3. You drink Speyside, and you did your homework before you ever bought a bottle. Glenfiddich, the Glenlivet, the Macallan, Balvenie. This one valley in the northeast holds the greatest concentration of distilleries anywhere in Scotland, produces well over half the country's single malt, and gave the world its 2 best-selling single malts outright. Honey, orchard fruit, vanilla, a whisper of oak, all of it woven together and none of it shouting for attention. If this is your pour, you read the tasting notes properly, you found the bottle that punches well above its price, and you are quietly not telling anyone which one it is. You nodded along politely when somebody at the bar ordered the famous 18-year-old, not because you were impressed, but because you had already moved past it to something smaller and frankly better. The personality data maps onto you almost suspiciously well. Conscientious, reliable, refined, without ever being loud about it. You are not showing off. You simply know things, and you are content to let that quiet knowledge do the talking while you say very little and sip. Number 2. Quick pause before the top 2. If you are getting something out of this, hitting subscribe helps the channel more than you would guess, and I go through the comments on every single video, so drop me a note telling me which one of these is you so far. No judgment, mostly none. You drink blended Scotch, and the snobs have been wrong about you for decades. Johnny Walker, Chivas 18 Dewars. Roughly 9 out of every 10 bottles of Scotch sold anywhere on Earth are blends, which means the overwhelming majority of Scotch ever poured and enjoyed has been exactly what is in your glass right now. And yet somewhere along the way, the whiskey world decided that single malt was the serious person's drink, and a blend was the beginner's compromise you eventually grow out of. That is nonsense, and it is a specific, tired kind of snobbery that is worth naming out loud. Johnny Walker Black is a genuinely skilled, beautifully balanced piece of work. Chivas 18 is superb by any honest measure. You have almost certainly had someone at a tasting glance down at your glass and gently suggest that you might want to graduate to a single malt one of these days. You did not ask for the advice, you smiled, you kept drinking. The motive research drops you into the most comfortable category in the whole study. You found what you like, it suits the moment you are in, and the endless politics around the label bore you absolutely senseless. Reaching that kind of calm is a lot harder than it looks from the outside. And for a lot of you, there is a quiet reason underneath it. You drink the blend your father drank, or the one that was on the shelf the first time whiskey meant something, and no rare single malt is ever going to dislodge that. That is not a lack of taste. That is loyalty, and it is worth more than a score out of 100. Number 1. You drink the heavy peat, the smoke monsters from the island, and you are not here to be liked. You are here to be respected, or, failing that, feared just a little. Ardbeg, Lagavulin, Octomore, Laphroaig. With Bunnahaven sitting on the shelf as the gentler island option for the evenings, you want the same DNA in a quieter coat. You stride straight past the pretty packaging on the top shelf and reach for the bottle that smells like iodine and a beach fire and somehow costs less than it has any right to. You have had the exact same argument 100 times over. No, it is not supposed to taste milder. Yes, it really does taste like that. And that, my friend, is the entire point. There is even a name for what you are doing. Psychologists call it benign masochism, the strange human knack for seeking out a controlled hit of discomfort and enjoying it precisely because it bites back. The same wiring behind eye-watering chilies and the long climb up a roller coaster. The smoke crowd reads that, nods slowly, and immediately offers you a taste of something even more extreme than the last. You do not merely tolerate a challenge, you collect them like trophies. Whether that makes you the most refined palate in the room or just the most stubborn person at the bar, you genuinely could not care less, and that indifference might be the most island thing about you. So those are the types. Here is the part the neat little chart conveniently leaves out. Moore, the same psychologist who built the entire matching system, admitted something that complicates his own findings. The single best predictor of a love for smoke is not any personality score at all. It is simply experience. Right across the board, seasoned drinkers drift toward bigger, smokier, more intense whiskey over the years, no matter where they started out. So you might have begun your drinking life as a gentle Speyside person and slid steadily toward the peat over a decade, and your underlying character never shifted an inch. Your palate just grew up around you, which means your Scotch is a timeline, at least as much as it is a mirror. The mirror shows one more thing though, and it is about who the industry assumed was holding it. Back in 2015, the single biggest group of American Scotch drinkers was people over 65. By 2018, that had flipped completely, and the 25 to 34 crowd became the largest group in the country. The audience got younger almost overnight, and it got far more mixed than the old picture of a silver-haired man in a wood-panelled study nursing a dram. That image was always a costume anyway. The real Scotch drinker today is younger, far more likely to be a woman than marketing ever admitted, and a great deal less interested in being sold somebody else's fantasy about inherited wealth and quiet tradition. The brands have noticed, and they are now chasing the future in two opposite directions at the very same time. At one end, Johnny Walker opened something called The Vault in 2025, a private blending experience aimed squarely at the seriously rich that starts at £50,000 and ends with a bespoke bottle in a crystal decanter. Pure status, sold to the person who already owns everything and would like a whiskey to confirm it. At the other end, the whole industry is leaning hard into quizzes and algorithms that try to match you to the right dram by reading your answers, which is really just that personality study from the start of this video, repackaged as a sales tool. Centuries ago, a publican in Edinburgh was solving the very same puzzle by eye. What does this person standing in front of me actually want tonight? And what do I pour into their glass? The honest answer is that your Scotch is never just one single thing. It is a slice of your personality, a dopamine response, a story about whoever first pressed a glass into your hand, and a small, quiet performance for whoever happens to be watching you drink it. All of that at once, every time. So the next time someone asks you why you drink what you drink, the real answer runs a good deal longer than they bargained for. Pour them one and make them earn it. If this gave you something to chew on the next time you are standing in front of the whiskey shelf, subscribing keeps these coming every week, and I will see you in the next one.